Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. In all the churches and chapels in Poland, after each Holy Mass, there was a solemn singing of the Trisagion. The Polish bishops chose that form of prayer in response to all the blaspheming and profanities derived from the recent provocation of the LGBT communities, which, among other things, parodied a Holy Mass ceremony during the Equality Parade in Warsaw.
Święty Michale Archaniele, wspomagaj nas w walce, a przeciw zasadzkom niegodziwości złego ducha, bądź naszą obroną.
The imprecatory prayer was announced by Archbishop Stanisław Gondecki, the president of the Conference of the Polish Episcopate, in a special statement on June 17th. In the Christian tradition, the profaned places or objects need to be given back their sacred character. It takes place over a special penitential rite. Hence, I would like to inform that the bishops present at the 338th meeting of the Conference of the Polish Episcopate call for the public asking God for forgiveness for the sacrileges committed. We request that after the ceremony of Eucharist on Sunday 23rd, in all the churches and chapels the supplication Trisagion is sung. On May 24th, during the Tri-City Equality March, some partakers in the parade carried a banner with a painted vagina, imitating the Corpus Christi procession, while during a parade in Warsaw, Szymon Niemiec parodied a Holy Mass.
Niech was błogosławi Bóg Wszechmogący, Ojciec i Syn.
W naszej wierze
Symbols are very important to our faith. If someone commits a sacrilege of, in example, a painting of the Holy Mother, then it is also a sign of no respect for everyone for whom the painting is sacred. It simply hurts, and we're very sorry that someone doesn't show respect to the faithful that way.
jest nam bardzo przykro z tego powodu.
The imprecatory hymn Trisagion is a very old solemn song, and the so-called supplication, which is a form of request. It's sung on special occasions, stressed Archbishop Gondecki in his statement. Today it was a form of compensation for the recent acts of profanity.
The police in Poland's southeasternmost city had to resort to action during the LGBT activist march. Officers separated the participants of the LGBT march from the protesters who, at some point, threw eggs and tried to block the parade. Earlier this month, the mayor of Rzeszów, Tadeusz Ferenc, refused to accept the march due to the possibility of ensuing violence. The motion was subsequently overruled by the court. LGBT activists demanded permission, the right to gay marriages and the allowance of homosexual couples to adopt.
Several hundred people participated in the march, which the counter-protesters tried to stop. The police arrested one of the counter-protesters who allegedly violated the body integrity of the police officer. This was the second year of the Pride Parade in the city of Rzeszów. The mayor, Tadeusz Ferenc, did not agree for the march to take place, but his decision was overruled by the Court of Appeal.
RMF-FM Radio have stated that the Deputy Prime Minister of Poland, Beata Szydło, does not want to be the Polish candidate for the position of the President of the European Commission. Szydło herself responded to the report on Twitter.
The RMF-FM radio station's sensational reports regarding the positions in the European Union indicate that the summer and the silly season has begun. I want to wish everyone a good Sunday and a good rest for all the lucky ones who have just started their holidays. And also, I want to wish more patience for those who are passionate about political gossip.
Poland is due to experience a tropical heat wave at the end of June. Weather forecasts have suggested that temperatures could peak at 40 degrees Celsius. The highest temperatures will hit western Polish provinces.
We can expect higher and higher temperatures in the next couple of days. The temperature will be 29 degrees Celsius tomorrow in south and eastern Poland. Tuesday to Thursday will be the hottest period. Fortunately, it won't be as hot as in Western Europe. Wednesday will be the hottest day with 34 to 35 degrees Celsius. The next few days will be a little bit cooler.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, culture, history and finally the travel.
I'm Aleksandra Zarzycka and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tonight. Temperature will hover around 11 to 16 degrees on the southeast. Cloudless sky will appear over Zielona Góra, Poznań, Bydgoszcz and Olsztyn. In the rest of the country, light overcast is expected. Let's see the forecast for tomorrow. Temperature will increase to 30 degrees in Wrocław. The minimum temperature will be 22 degrees in Gdańsk. Pressure will rise. A lot of sun will appear across the country. Let's check the weather for the next days. Tuesday will bring us higher temperature, 32 degrees. Wednesday will be very similar. Temperature will increase again to 34 degrees on the southwest. On Thursday, downpour will appear on the southwest. In other regions, we may expect more sunlight. Temperature will be still high. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
You're watching Poland Daily Business, and tonight we will talk about the Polish-American cooperation that's high on the agenda these days. No wonder the historic visit of President Andrzej Duda in the White House, the number of ideas of cooperation, both in terms of economy, military, and hopefully politics, and this is all tied together. How to untangle this knot? We'll ask Mr. Chris Zawitkowski of Polonia Institute, the Polish-American. Sir, welcome to the show.
Good. Thank you very much. I welcome you as well.
Let us start from the political ideas of Donald Trump and how he sees the role of America in this century.
Well, there are a number of things that Polish Americans actually like in what Trump is doing. There are things we don't like, but there are things that we like. In short, I can say we don't like this Senate Bill 447, and we will be fighting it until it's revoked or changed to the point that the hairless property approach is going to be removed. But we like his economic policies. And he is the free marketeer himself. He's a businessman who built his empire from $20 million worth to $20 billion worth. And he also is supporting lots of different initiatives. He reduced taxes. He wants to pursue even further, which we like a lot. We think that this is stimulating economy. When the company has more money at hand, then it's much easier to spend this money on research and development, on internal research and development, and even buying research and development from some others to improve the productivity, improve the profits, of course, and also improve the way that companies are being managed. And this is something that Poland should be looking into. First of all, for possibility of investment that could come from the United States, not only as a part of the offset of the military, although private investment, they usually follow the military offsets. This happened in the case of Germany, France, and UK.
Korea.
US, yes, that's and Korea, of course. But we need to know how to negotiate. We should not expect that they would do something like, grabbing our hands and saying everything is wonderful. No, they will negotiate very tough way, what is convenient for them. But Poland should also take the same approach. And we should say, well, we are interested in your investment, but what kind of leadership this investment is going to bring to Polish economy? And of course, we should learn also not only from financial investment, but also from the way that U.S. companies are being managed, because they are managed very efficient way. The entrepreneurial path, from the idea to materialization in American companies is very short. And I can prove it because I was the CEO of the public corporation, so I know how it works. It's really fast, and Poland must learn from it. You know, there are young Poles that are brilliant and have lots of different ideas, but the bureaucratic machine is shredding the ideas into something that, you know, it's not desired really.
Right,
So
or eventually when the idea or product appears on the market is years behind the current state of the art. The basic idea seems that the energy policy is very important. For Poland, we are under the Russia's yoke in terms of gas and oil delivery. We want to break free from that yoke, buying and purchasing the products from the United States. And this is, for the decades, as far as I can remember, the first real deal that both sides are interested in and both sides are eventually profiting.
Yes, indeed. The efficiency is also very important for improving the earning ability of people. My company was specializing in command and control centers, and we built those for Canadian, for U.S. government, for Israelis, and for some others. And when we were trying to transfer technology to Poland, we found that Polish engineers were about only 1/3 efficient of those like in Canada or US. And although it was 20 years ago, but I think that situation improved since that. However, it's still, what people tell me, it's still slow. So this must change, and U.S. companies can be a vehicle to spearhead the possibility for not only improving entrepreneurial skills, but also to change the way that productivity should look like. And then, in turn, people would make more money and they would buy more goods and the economy would be booming. And the possibility for it is very strong. Now,
right.
with this,
you mentioned the countries like Germany, Korea, or United Kingdom, and after the Second World War, all those countries produced companies and goods that were selling huge in the United States. Are there possibility to improve the volume of our trade with the United States?
Of course. I can tell you this. For example, I like kefir, for example, myself. And when I buy kefir in the United States, it doesn't come even close in taste to for example, Krasnyslav kefir that is sold in Poland. If Krasnyslav was promoting their product in the United States, I'm sure it would be making beautiful sales.
So the food industry is the one that has a prospect in the American soil. What about our furniture?
Americans like big furniture. You know, if Poland was offering anything like IKEA, yeah, IKEA is being sold in the United States, and this is probably most of the furniture in IKEA are produced in Poland.
That's true.
But I believe that there are many areas that Poland could be selling to the United States. You know, with cheaper labor, if efficient, of course, and productivity is good, then I'm sure it would be very, very competitive in the United States. Because, like, I'll give you an example. U.S. is buying a lot of stuff from China. But one company executive who they produce small cranes, and they buy electric engines for those cranes in China. And he said only about 1/3 of those cranes meets the test requirements when it is arriving in the United States. You know, if Poland was producing those electric engines that say 95% would be coming close to what the American specs are requiring, then of course they would sell it very well. I'll give you, and there are many other things, you know. Keep in mind there is a nice semiconductor center in Krakow area that would be good addition to to the Silicon Valley. Keep in mind, in Warsaw, there is a big development center by Microsoft. There is Intel in Gdansk area. There are American companies here. But, you know, once the efficiency, once the productivity goes up, then I'm sure the Polish product would come together with American products, return from Poland to US, like, for example, Microsoft or Intel.
Okay, so there is the sky is the limit, so to speak, and the number of products and services that can be offered and sold in the United States is great. And this, what you said, I think is very important, the performance of the American companies, and if matched with Polish organization, will be practically a proof of success. Chris Zawidkowski.
I can tell you, if I can, last word I can tell you, I visited one company that produces military electronics in Bydgoszcz. I don't want to advertise, so I won't give the name, but I know that this company is selling to NATO computers, modems, and other electronic stuff that is necessary for military, you know? Did you know it? Just Polish companies selling to NATO.
Right, well, right. There is a number of products and very developed by extremely capable engineers. The question, obviously, is in volume, in sales, in after sales, and all those things that a company exporting to the United States has to solve. Chris Zawidkowski, thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Welcome back to Poland Daily Weather. Let's take a look at the forecast for tomorrow. Temperature will increase to 30 degrees in Wrocław. The minimum temperature will be 22 degrees in Gdańsk. Pressure will rise. A lot of sun will appear across the country. Now let's check the weather for Europe. On the south of Europe, temperature will rise. The highest temperature we will see in Madrid and Athens, 35 degrees. Warmer in Scandinavia, and there the temperature will range from 20 to 23 degrees. In Central Europe, little rainfall will appear, but the sun will also appear. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
Welcome to Poland Daily Culture. On today's episode, we're at Krzecin Mały Palace and the Polish Western countryside. We're going to be meeting the Nikolai family and telling you all about this historic palace and the surrounding area.
The palace in Krzecin Mały is a Baroque palace from the 18th century. In 1997, a French family coming from Belgium, Count and Countess Guillain de Nicolai, bought the estate and started renovating it. Since 5 years, their son, Count Charles de Nicolai, is patiently taking care of their new house in Poland. In our episodes, he will tell us about the history of the palace as well as about his family.
So Charles, your family doesn't have any sort of direct Polish roots, but as I understand it, maybe there is some if you go far enough back into history.
Yes, well, quite far. The first Polish king, Mieszko, is one of my ancestors, but it's going through German ancestors, because there were weddings between Polish and Germans, and then Germans and French. So that's how it went. But actually, our family is of Italian origin, from Florence in Tuscany, and they came to France with the popes during the war between the Guelph and the Gibelins in the 14th century. And as they were working for the popes then, they followed them to Avignon, where the popes spent three popes were in Avignon for about 100 years before going back to Rome. And our family stayed in France at that time, and in the 15th century moved to Paris, where they served the French kings. There were generals, ministers, bishops, men of war also. There was one Maréchal de France, a member of the l'Académie Française, the French Academy of Literature. There was a chancellor of Naples. A chancellor is the prime minister. But it all ended during the French Revolution. Well, some of them were guillotined, which was ended. Others followed Louis XVIII abroad and came back with him after Waterloo. And they stayed during the reign of Louis XVIII and Charles X. And they immigrated again after the Revolution of 1830 and followed Charles X, which was much less common than during the real French Revolution, because as they were cutting heads, everyone who didn't want that emigrated. As for the Revolution of 1830s, most people stayed because there was no physical danger. And this part, my part of the Nicolai family, were very close and to the king, and one of my great-great-grandmothers even went with them to Prague, quite next to here in Czech Republic, which was in Austro-Hungarian Empire then, to teach the grandchildren of Charles X school. And when this was finished, they spent the 19th century in Switzerland, this part of the family, and one of my great-great-grandfather married a Belgian woman, so the 20th century was Belgium. They built this house in Loupoigne, which we were talking about before, because they didn't want to come back to France until the king didn't come back, which I believe is not so close. He's not so close to come back in France. So 19th century was in Switzerland, 20th in Belgium, and maybe 21st century will be in Poland.
Right, there you go. Charles, tell me, is it strange living your life in a small Polish village far away from growing up in Belgium?
I think it's much more easier now, today, for me than it was for my parents when they arrived here, because they arrived at the end of the 90s, well, the middle 90s, the first time they came here. Well, there was the language barrier, which was quite difficult here because it took them some time to learn Polish. And people here didn't speak or spoke only as another language Russian. So that was quite difficult for them. And they lived with my sister and I in a little typical apartment, communist apartment in the town next to here, in a big block, as you can imagine them. So it was difficult for them to get used to it, and there weren't the big shops like we can find them here today. But no, now it's very nice, especially continuing the work of my parents. It's very gives a lot of enthusiasm to continue after them, to rebuild this place, to redo the gardens here is very interesting.
Of course, the sort of surrounding area itself is quite sort of interesting and has developed in an interesting direction over recent times. With you've got the flourishing copper mine industry.
Yes, in the town next to here, which is called Lubin, they discovered in the 60s that there was some copper under the earth. It's one of the biggest copper mines in the world, one of the biggest Polish companies, which is here. It's called the KGHM. And it gives work to a lot of people who live around. When they discovered it, we were saying before that most of the people who live in the village come from what is today Ukraine, because they came in after the war. But when they discovered the mine, people came from the whole of Poland. And this town of Lubin, which used to have 15,000 people living there, now has 100,000. So it's really a melting pot here, people from all over Poland.
So tell me, is it difficult to maintain such a house?
It's not difficult, it's a joy of every day, but it's not easy either. When you build a new house, everything works very, very fine. Here, it's always something, or the heating system, or the plumbing, because all things are quite old, or we have new techniques which are used, techniques of the 21st century, used in a house of the 18th century. So it makes everything more complicated, but very interesting too. We put this a few years ago, a new heating system, which is very ecological. We use only the wood that we produce here in the gardens, in the forest here. It's very interesting to be able to do that kind of new things.
The rich history of this place owes much to its geographical location. Located in the borderlands, the gateway from the Carpathian Mountains to the lowland plains, on the navigable Sand River, which of course created great trade opportunities. And that is why this town, Przemyśl, grew up. I'm standing here in the market square in Przemyśl at the beginning of our journey, a journey through history which takes us from the end of the Roman Empire to the end of the Second World War, a rich history of people, of buildings, of institutions. Join me on Poland Daily History as we see Przemyśl above ground and below ground. We're here on the roof of the clock tower in the center of Przemyśl, from which we have a marvelous view. We can see over into the Ukraine, we can see the beginning of the Carpathians, we can see some of the buildings we've visited earlier. But I'd like to start by asking you, Karol, can you tell us a bit about the history of the tower?
Of course, the history of the tower is very interesting. I think it would be interesting for anyone who would visit the city of Przemyśl. Generally, the city of Przemyśl was a very multicultural city. There were Catholics here, but also Greek Catholics, Orthodox and Jews. The tower itself was originally planned to be constructed as the bell tower for the new Orthodox Church. The church was to be located around 10 to 15 meters from where we are. It was constructed between 1775 and 1777, so the fourth quarter of the 18th century. In the end, the church was never built, but the tower remained and is today serving the citizens of Przemyśl as a museum. But before it happened, and before it was transformed into probably the only museum of this type, not only in Poland but in all of Europe, it served for 123 years as a guard tower for the fire brigade, which was stationed here in Przemyśl on Jagiellońska Street. It's worth mentioning, when we are talking about the firefighters, that the fire brigade has been operating in Przemyśl for more than 150 years, so it also has its rich history. After the Second World War, the bell tower served the city as, for example, a broadcasting tower and later as a youth shelter. It may be hard to imagine this, given the building's floor layout, but it was really like this. Only since the year 1983, and we are talking about the 20th century, the tower became the property of the National Museum of the Przemyśl land, and on September 15, 2001, it became the aforementioned museum. The tower itself is quite the challenge for tourists who want to go to the observation deck, since there are those 198 steps to take, especially the first few are quite uncomfortable. There are 8 floors, out of which 7 are in use, with mainly the exhibitions showcasing bells and tobacco pipes. However, when we finally reach that 38th meter, there is a great view of the city's landscape, with, for instance, the overlooking Carmelite Church. The Carmelite Church was founded by Marcin Krasicki. Who was Marcin Krasicki? A great figure connected with the city of Przemyśl, especially in the 17th century, among other things responsible for the reconstruction of the Kazimierzowski Castle and the Carmelite Church, and that's why the church has a crypt devoted to Marcin Krasicki.
We just heard the bells, which is fantastic. So the tower, the clock tower's just striking the hour there, and now some more bells in the background. And that's an interesting point I'd just like to explore with you, if I may, Carol. One of the functions, as you mentioned, of this tower today is that it serves as a bell museum, which is quite an unusual museum to have. And I understand that in Przemyśl traditionally has been a centre of bell manufacturing. And I was wondering why bells were manufactured in this particular town.
Yes, it is true, but the tradition of bells connected with the Felczyńscy family, with Jan Felczyński in particular, comes from the town of Kałuż in today's Ukraine. The foundry was built in 1808, but in Przemyśl, the foundry at the Krasiński Street was constructed just before the outbreak of the Second World War, and these traditions remained until today. There is also a second foundry of Janusz Felczyński in the city of Ostrów, and a third one in Taciszowo near Gliwice. Of course, we are still talking here about the family of Felczyńscy, but a distant line. As an interesting anecdote, I shall add that one of the first big projects of the family was the construction of the bell for the Lublin Cathedral. Unfortunately, such a big project was interrupted by the war, as the 6.5-ton bell was confiscated by the Germans. It is unknown what happened to it later. later. The next big project was for the sanctuary in Licheń, an 11.6-ton bell Józef, and the last huge construction, which began last year and finished this year, was the 55-ton bell made with the help of the Krakow metallurgists, which will be sent to a basilica in Brazil, so it will soon be sent on a ship across the ocean. The Felczyńscy family is indeed very connected to the Przemyśl area and its traditions, so it was used for the promotion of the city of Przemyśl.
And also, while we're here, the other collection in this tower is a collection of historic pipes. And again, I was wondering why in Przemyśl you'd have a collection of pipes. Is there a tradition of pipe making in the town?
The first pipe shop was established in Przemyśl around the year 1870, but the biggest pipe-making boom came during the times of Wincenty Swoboda. He was a Czech who came here in the beginning of the 20th century and began developing his craftsmanship. He taught here his own apprentices, who would later become masters of this art upon passing the master's exam. After passing such an exam, they could go on to teach their own students, etc. One of the most famous students of Wincenty Swoboda was, for instance, Ludwik Walat, who created pipes known across the entire Europe for their quality, the so-called Walatówki. To honor this pipe-making tradition, Przemyśl holds an annual pipe holiday, which gathers pipe makers and pipe smokers from all over Poland and also from different parts of Europe. There are approximately 8 big pipe factories in Poland, and they're apparently all located in Przemyśl. It's a tradition worth cultivating.
And the collections here, this is actually part of it's a branch of the Przemysław National Regional Museum, I think.
Mainly yes, but we also have 19th century pipes from Vienna. The most valuable ones are made from sepiolite, or the so-called sea foam, which can be characterized as a rock mineral. It's mostly found in hotter climates, for instance near Spain. There are also the so-called reservists pipes, so pipes given to soldiers who ended their service and were sent to reserves. In the Austrian kingdom, where every soldier finishing his service was supposed to get such a pipe. How was it in reality? At first it was actually in practice, but we know that in time not every soldier got such a gift from the authorities.
And then, probably you may know, how many different pipes do you have in the collection?
We have the aforementioned sepiolite pipes, also ones made from heath, which is a very hard type of wood, from which tobacco tastes best, from pear and cherry wood, porcelain, even corn, which can be smoked from, and also from clay, which were made during the siege of the Przemyśl fortress. I heard there were also pipes made from ivory, but because of the harsher regulations, it is no longer used for pipe production.
Produkcji fajek, jednak ze względu na zaostrzone przepisy tego już teraz się po prostu nie praktykuje.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Poland Daily. We're glad to see you. In this series of episodes, we will be traveling from Warsaw north in the direction of Torun, the beautiful Gothic city. Call it serendipitous exploration, if you will. We've got our motor running, and we're looking for adventure, as the song says. This is a loosely planned jaunt. We're going to see what we can see. Imagine you got into your car and just took off through the countryside. That's what we're doing. I don't know about you, but I love a road trip. And in the beautiful weather, Poland has a lot of great road trips to offer. The countryside is amazing. And you never know what secret treasures you might stumble upon. So come with us as we road trip northward up the Wisła from Warsaw to the beautiful city of Torun. This is Poland Daily Travel. I'm Will. Thanks for watching. And there you go. Just as I said, here is the monastery. It's quite an impressive place, too. You've got the church here, Romanesque church. And as part of the old monastery complex. It's worth having a look around. It's a nice tower here. You can see it's being renovated. I mean, this is the sort of building that would have put Czerwinsk on the map in the Middle Ages. This would have been a significant local place of worship and important within the region. Because wherever you had monks, you also had sort of crafts that they were doing. They would be producing bread. They would be producing some kinds of alcohol sometimes. And it would be a sort of a local center of commerce and of thought. So a nice place like this would have been significant and would have contributed a lot to the cultural life of the surrounding areas, you see. And that's why it's worth knowing. And we can see as we're walking around behind the building here, you can see this is a very strong, the very strong foundation of the church here. It's built almost like a fortress, isn't it? And quite impressive, indeed. And if we walk over here, we might just get a look over the river, and you can see the significant point of view that there's a thing there, yeah. You could see the significant point of view you would gain from here. Yes, yes, we're going to get a good view. Come over here and let's look at that. Look at this, very nice. A sweeping view of the Wisła from here. And it's great. There's no one else here but us right now. So it's not overrun with tourists. And that's kind of what we're doing today. We're showing you how to get out in the countryside and just to, you know, drive and see what you find. You don't find all the greatest attractions in the bigger cities or bigger towns. Still at the church here in Czerwinsk. Yeah, we were just standing outside admiring the beautiful view of the Wisła, coming in to look in the courtyard here, and one of the people here, I don't know if it's the priest or not, perhaps it was, or someone working here, came up and gave me this very nice booklet about Czerwinsk, which is exactly the kind of thing, the kind of nice common courtesy that we would expect in a swell little village like this. And boy, it makes things nicer. Anyway, it says Czerwinsk is one of the oldest Marian sanctuaries in Poland. It's one of the best-known centers of adoration of the Mother of God in Mazovia. This particular sect takes its roots from the earliest history of the Polish nation. So we were right. This is just by looking at the place, we were having some sense of its importance in the area and over time. This Romanesque church is from the 12th century, so it's going back to the 1100s. That's quite something. So well worth the stop. Let's go over here and see what this is. Looks like we've got some anchors. These must be for the traffic on the river. Yeah. Yeah, these look like fairly substantial anchors that, and here's a sort of flotation made out of metal. Don't know how effective that would be. I suppose it works. I mean, boats are metal and they float on the water, don't they? So that's that. We're going to go and have a peek in the actual sanctuary. It says here, actually, that after the famous victory of Grunwald, the Polish king, Władysław Jagiełło, made an offering here in Czerwińsk. So, boy, oh boy, we were right to come in here and have a look, because it is a significant place. And you can just see by its location and the substantial foundation and construction of the church that it is important. Boy, that's a nice view up there. If you can get this view looking up right along my hand at the sky above with these two towers. And those are some pretty old towers. I don't know if they go back to the 12th century. 12th century or not, but you can see here also the Romanesque arches. And that'll tell you exactly how old this is as you look along. Fascinating stuff. Okay, let's go and have a look in the sanctuary. I think we're going to have somebody show us in. We're back in Czerwińsk. We can't leave because now the fellow who gave me this came back, and it's Jan, and he's actually the priest here. Jan, thank you very much for coming and saying hi. And we now realize we weren't exaggerating when we said this place was a treasure. And also, it has been the site of a very interesting, some might call it a miracle, certainly an extraordinary coincidence, because in the old days, when there was a plague of cholera, they brought in these wooden crosses. This is the story from the time. They brought in a series of 3 wooden crosses, like the ones on the Hill of Crucifixion, and the cholera stopped. And one of those crosses we filmed earlier in the courtyard. At any rate, Jan, can we go inside? Okay, I'll follow you. I'll follow you. And here we have something quite amazing. I mean, it's just one thing after another looking at this church, which has been hardly touched over the centuries, never destroyed, never burned, never anything, just existing the way it has for nearly 1,000 years. Here we have the, as I understand it, the only existing original Gothic door. So this door is 700 years old. And beyond that, there's a very interesting story about a knocker that was on this door. During the war, it was fancied, this particular knocker, it was a big brass knocker, and the figure of a lion with the eyes of a man, and the lion had a human being in its mouth, and it was fancied by a German officer who had made a list of things he wanted to take from Poland during the war. At least this is the story. And he spirited away this knocker soon after the invasion, and it has never been returned. He did not take the door. Obviously, a Gothic door was not on his collection list, but it might be on yours, because it's quite an amazing artifact. What a revelation. You see, very glad we stopped off in Czerwińsk, not Wisła, not knowing what we would find. And the day of adventure continues.